the official YouTube channel of the Cumberland County Planning Department, because the future works better when we can all see it. My name's Elizabeth Grant, and I'm a planning specialist at Cumberland County Planning Department. And data center development has been the key planning issue over the past year, driving public concern and engagement at meetings as municipalities work to determine how best to accommodate this emerging land use in their communities while ensuring the protection of water resources and quality of life for their residents. But why is this type of development moving into the state and the central PA region, seemingly all at once? And what makes it an attractive location for developers? What can we expect to see in the future? And is this current growth rate sustainable? Today, I'm meeting with Kraig Walsleben, principal at Rogers Consulting, and Thomas Natelli Jr., vice president of Natelli Holdings, to help give insight into this from the perspective of data center developers so that we can understand the issues and trends driving this change and best prepare for them. Thanks for joining me. Could you please introduce yourselves and maybe share a little bit about your companies and your experience with data center development in Pennsylvania or other states?
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're excited to be able to participate in this. As I was introduced, Thomas Natelli, Vice President of Natelli Holdings. We are a family-owned master plan development company. Currently, I am third generation, so we've been around for a few decades. Primarily, we operate in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast regions of the United States, as well as Nashville and Texas. And we've been doing master plan development from residential, commercial, and retail, all the way up through industrial, where data centers is typically located.
Thanks.
And my name is Kraig Walsleben. I'm a principal at Rogers Consulting. We are civil engineers, land planners, environmental specialists, surveyors. We do land planning and entitlement work and civil engineering to support that. So we've been doing, like Tommy, engineering, land planning work in multiple states, looking at data centers and where they can go. But the closest example would be Frederick County, Maryland, where we've designed and entitled and engineered 17 million square feet of data center. That's under construction right now. Some of the buildings are being occupied by their end users as we speak, but it's the largest private investment in the state of Maryland's history, so I'm told. So that's what we end up doing.
Wow. So why are data centers interested in locating in Pennsylvania and maybe Cumberland County in particular? Is there anything you can share about where we could expect this development to be more or less likely to occur?
Well, I think to answer that question, you kind of have to look at the state as a whole. The state has a lot of available resources, and with power, favorable legislation, water availability, all those things are drivers and attractions for data centers. And as we start looking at the geographical locations, Cumberland County is very well situated on the 81 corridor, where there's diverse fiber as well as other industry in the area. And the other great thing about Pennsylvania that I want to throw in here, and we can talk about it more, is if you look at our whole industrial revolution, Pennsylvania thrived with manufacturing and all that. A lot of those industries have since not rebranded, but redefined themselves, and some of them even moved away, with which leaves a lot of great redevelopment of sites that are currently not doing anything for the economic growth of the state or their jurisdictions that they're in.
Yeah, I would echo what Tommy was saying in that there's a power availability that is present. There's favorable terrain in portions of the state, but consider Cumberland County. And something he touched on that is very important is a proximity to a talent pool. You have a workforce that can be drawn upon that's readily available. You can find power, in many different places, and you can find flat terrain in many different places and water and stuff. But do they have a talent pool present that can serve the project, both from a construction and from an operation standpoint? And we're finding that Pennsylvania is offering all of those things.
That's great. So what needs or trends in the industry are really kind of driving this boom that we're seeing in data center development currently?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing right now is a lot of hyperscale data centers, which are your larger AI, large model language training facilities. Those are the 800,000 to million square foot campuses that you see popping up kind of all over the country that are making the headlines. So right now, what's really driving the trend is the artificial intelligence boom, which has integrated itself into our life. I mean, farmers are using AI, public services are using AI, schools are using AI, and data centers, and everyone's using that and data centers in general to help our society evolve. Our society is extremely technology reliant, and whether it's large language model training facilities or something coming in the future, who knows? But there's always going to be a technological demand in this sector.
Just the fact that we're having a podcast is utilizing a data center. The fact that we're in 3 different rooms at this time is utilizing the resources of a data center. Everyone's phone that they have in their pocket that is able to collect data and or look up data, it's all going to a place. And where's that place? That's a data center, a structure somewhere that's housing that data and that programming. So it's in every bit of our lives today, and it's going to be even further tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that kind of does, anticipate kind of like knowing what it looks like today. What does the future look like? Like, do we, is the technology evolving such that, we're looking at potentially less space being taken up for data centers? Are they going to be capable of housing more data more efficiently? And just, do we see that, this demand is going to drive some, extreme expansion into areas where it's not currently located? Or do we see that there might be some cooling off due to either economic or energy concerns or realities?
Do you want to take the first part of that and I can talk about energy?
Sure. Energy is an important part, but the demand is ever increasing, and we see no end in sight in terms of what that digital data demand will be. More applications come out daily that look for that demand. So there are efficiencies that we're also gaining every day. Chips are more efficient. They can store more in less space, those types of things. But they currently aren't necessarily keeping up with demand. And that's what's driving the need for more and more data centers. Even though the chips and the facilities themselves get more efficient every day, they just don't keep up with demand. And you have to look at sort of the evolution of the data centers, where they started out as an enterprise facility where a bank or a biotech user had their own data center, and that may have sat on 10,000 or 60,000 square feet, and they could house all their data. Then that started to get expensive, and you had co-location facilities pop up where one developer would create a data center that would have multiple users in it. So multiple banks or stores and stuff would reside in one co-location data center. But then came the AI boom and the need to work on large language models and the like. And that created the hyperscale data center, where facilities are 500,000 square feet in size or more, consuming hundreds of megawatts into the gigawatt realm now. That came about to generate the AI model, and that is creating what we do next, which will be an inference data center, which will deliver that model to the people where they live. And we haven't really seen those yet, but they will be coming out in the next 5 years or so, and they will be delivering that service to the communities directly. So there's that evolution of what it looks like, but the demand is there and is ever increasing.
And are those, just so I understand too, the last model that you talked about kind of moving out more into the communities, are those smaller scale than the large hyperscales that are currently being proposed?
They are, and they're still evolving themselves. So they can be anywhere from, again, like the Enterprise, a small 10,000 square foot facility, or they may be as large as 300,000 square feet.
Okay.
No one's precisely sure how the AI model will be delivered to the communities, but they just know it will be, and that size and configuration will evolve over the next couple of years to figure out how best to deliver.
Yep. And the part that we're all trying to solve right now is how do you provide energy to accommodate all this? Large language model AI facilities are going to be around for a while, and there's always going to be a need for it. What's happened over the past decade or so is there has not been a lot of demand in our power grid. So you've got carbon free, carbon green initiatives that were put in place. So we're shutting down a lot of our fossil fuel generation plants and trying to bring back on clean energy. What we're doing as an industry right now is trying to solve the gap until the advanced nuclear technology, the SMRs are commercially available to help support the grid with power. And we're doing that by trying to be smart about where these are being located. Can we provide alternate methods of providing energy using natural gas and not pulling straight from the grid, which Pennsylvania has a lot of transmission running through it, which makes it favorable to locate in Pennsylvania because of that. Right. So it's a matter of trying to really get to the mid 2030s when I feel, in my opinion, SMRs will be commercially available and will be able to help reduce a lot of the strain that these facilities are taking from the grid.
And what does that stand for again? I know you said that those are smaller they're nuclear facilities, but what?
Yeah, small modular reactors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Small modular and micro reactors. There's a whole lot of research and development and money being put into nuclear technology. I mean, you have 3 Mile Island, not very far from where you are, and I forget which firm is investing in that, but there's a need for it because it is the cleanest and most efficient way to provide energy.
Yeah, some of the people will fret about having a small modular reactor in their backyard type thing associated with each of these data centers. And the likelihood is that a data center itself won't have a reactor on its campus. But what's likely to be the most attractive method is to deploy these at abandoned coal fired generation facilities, because all the infrastructure will be existing there, all the wires that came into it. So you can stack a half dozen modular reactors on a coal site, be able to properly secure that site, and then have it deliver that energy directly into the grid that is still in place. So that's the most likely route that these will take.
So they will take those about, anywhere between 5 to 10 years to kind of start coming online. Is that what you're anticipating?
Yeah, we've been
Yeah.
told 5 years from now for the last 15. So.
Yeah.
They keep getting closer.
Right. So could we talk a little bit about noise and water usage? Because those are two of the concerns that we're hearing, people raise at a lot of our public meetings. Are there actions that you see the industry taking to either mitigate or address some of those concerns?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of actions that are being taken. And there's a lot of misinformation out there too. So you have to, data centers have been around for a long time. And, I go from generation 1 to generation 2. We're on like generation 3 or 4 now of how we've evolved with building data centers. A lot of the horror stories you hear about in Arizona or Ashburn are, more your first and second generation where there was no um, zoning ordinance or sound ordinances that they had to adhere to. We have to remember Ashburn, Loudoun County, they had data centers allowed in 80% of their zoning categories when they first started. And that is what allowed data centers to be 100, 150 feet from a residential home. So between setbacks, appropriate zoning, and improvements made in the industry, using sound attenuation, it has really helped evolve and address a lot of these concerns. And the same goes with water, and Kraig can get into more detail, but there's been efficiencies in water usage, the way that they're using water for cooling, and even the temperatures of data halls. So that way the water consumption is cut down significantly.
Right. And at this point, most of your large data center operators don't even use water now for cooling. They'll cool their systems down just using outside air, much like people's heat pumps at home. There are still a couple large scale operators that utilize water because water cools 30% more efficiently than air. So if you're using an air-cooled facility, you're using more power to do the same operations, and also it's a little bit noisier. So you have those two competing uses against the water consumption use. So in an area where water may be plentiful, then operators will choose water for cooling operations. If for some reason the water is not plentiful in that particular area, then they can switch to an air-cooled option. It'll just come at the expense of using more power. There's also a third option of using reclaimed water. Where if a municipality has a sewage treatment plant that can produce quality effluent coming out of the system, we can reclaim that water, bring it on site, polish it a little bit further before introducing it to our cooling systems. That becomes a sort of a win-win because the operator is able to utilize water, the more efficient means of cooling, and the municipality gains another revenue stream because typically if the system doesn't already exist, it's going to be built by the data center users. And then there's going to be that monthly charge that the municipality gets to charge for delivering yet another commodity. So it really becomes a win-win for everybody if that system is available.
That's interesting. And is there a certain density of data center development that makes that a more of a worthwhile option as well because of the expense?
Yeah, there's for sure a break-even point. I'm not sure I have a formula for that.
Right.
But a lot depends on proximity to a sewer treatment plant and whether that plant has the ability to deliver or generate for our use a quality reclaimed water. So
Governor Shapiro had proposed, a grid program to kind of ensure that there was responsible infrastructure development related to data center growth. Are you seeing, that and that there would be incentives offered for following those guidelines? Are you seeing, these types of incentives help encourage innovation in the industry or changes in terms of what data centers, how they respond to the needs of a community?
Yeah, the end users, the data center community has already sort of been walking in that direction. They've been taking significant strides in developing community benefit programs, being more environmentally responsible. Most of them have an internal requirement for having a large percentage, if not all of their power from a renewable green energy, whether they're developing that power themselves or paying into a pool to create that energy. They definitely are constantly looking for opportunities to help the community. When we come into a site, they're sitting down saying, what does the community need? How can we deliver and solve some of these issues? So those are things that they're already trying to look for. So for a government entity to then make that a priority and ask for it, that's great. That helps create a system for it, but we were sort of already going there. What really becomes an issue, and it's always been the issue for a data center developer, is speed to market and certainty. End users are about to invest billions of dollars into a project, and they are going to be hesitant to do so if there isn't certainty that they can deliver that product in a timely manner. And so if there's going to be too many regulations or things that hang up a project moving forward, then that becomes a hurdle. But when a government entity comes out with a program to help guide the end user through the process and make a smooth transition from start to finish, and it requires simply adherence to a bunch of programs that they're already involved with and generating, well, that becomes a win-win for everybody.
Right. Yeah, and I noticed you mentioned workforce earlier too. I believe that, workforce development training programs, are some of the ways that maybe centers can help, ensure that they have the employees, to
absolutely
to work in this industry.
Every community they go into, they initiate a workforce training process because they realize they have to generate their workforce wherever they go. And so community colleges are their very first stop in terms of can we create programs to create that workforce we're looking for.
Well, I'd like to really thank you for your time with us today. Are there any kind of final thoughts that you might have to share that we might want to consider? Or
I would just say, everyone who's taking a look at this video and following along in your jurisdiction's process is, educate yourself past what the headlines say. There are a lot of great reports out there. The Virginia Joint Legislative, the JLARC report is a great one to look at, and it's solely focused on the Ashburn area for data centers. E3 has another report out there about whether or not data centers are paying their fair share on transmission and power upgrades. And that really speaks to really how much it actually benefits the grid and it doesn't fall onto the ratepayers. That was another great independent study that was done. So, do your research. A lot of what we try to do is engage and educate because this is a very interesting industry to be in. And I've had to educate myself as well. Same with Kraig. And they really are they really do listen, and we really are trying to, do what's best for the communities that we're proposing to come into. So we can be good neighbors because we know that what we're doing, especially as a master plan developer, we know that when we're coming into a community, we are changing the landscape of that community for generations to come. So we want to do it, the best way possible with the best practices that are available to us at the time. And we want to make sure that we're not a massive disruption, especially in this industrial type use.
Yeah, I think that was well said, and took a lot of my my thoughts. But the community, the data center community itself has been evolving at every step, trying not only to create a better product of securing data, but also for integrating themselves into the community. You think back to those first data centers that went in Ashburn. They were going in within the flight path of Dulles Airport. There wasn't a lot of thought put into being quiet or anything else. They didn't have to be. There's no one else around but a bunch of planes flying over. And as they've spread out into other areas of the country and into the communities, they've had to up their game, change their processes. They've gotten quieter, they've gotten more efficient, they've gotten bigger, but at the same time, they've addressed the sound and the water consumptions and things of that nature. So you have to do your research and understand that if you search for a noisy data center, you're going to find it. It's going to be one of those first ones that were put in Ashburn. Look for what is the outcome of some of these more recent data centers and where they've addressed all of those concerns. How are those facilities operating? So you really have to dig in a little bit deeper when you do your research to get outside of the product that Ashburn created and look at what's in the communities around the country.
Very good. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate your time today, and we'll look for posting this video to the YouTube channel and to our website on data centers. Thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay.